Hello to all my friends out there. This is Matthew Campoli, and welcome back to the Price to Sell podcast, powered by Neighborhood Creative. Again, I'm your host, Matthew Campoli, and today we have another magnificent guest. We have Karina Eskandary. Did I do it well?
Eskandary.
Eskandary. Okay.
Whatever. That's
Almost.
good enough.
She is absolutely killing in the GTA market. Top 0.5% of all TREB, right? Which is huge.
Yep.
That's really big, considering we have close to 80,000 agents now.
Yeah.
So congrats on these achievements.
Thank
and
you.
Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So let's, for those who don't know you out there and who are listening and watching, give us a little brief bio into who you are and what you do.
So I guess I'll start with how I got into real estate. So
Great.
Got my license. I was debating. I have my degrees in biochemistry. I was literally just debating, should I be a chiropractor or should I get my real estate license? And I realized I actually loved working with people. So I got my real estate license, and I initially started working in the industry selling pre-construction, but on the builder side.
Okay.
So I would work for the builders. I was with Milbourne, who's a big leader in pre-construction sales here in the city. And that's how I started, and the rest is history.
And how long have you been in it now?
8 years.
8 years. Very good. And that's an amazing place to start. The pre-construction side. Yeah,
I learned a lot of things, especially from the back end, which really I think helped me out, especially now. So I knew pre-construction like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
Getting into the industry just on my own independently once I left.
Yeah, which is huge because a lot of agents, have no idea where to start with
pre-construction. Is a different animal.
It is.
So they have no clue either how to source getting units for their clients or just what that contract entails or any of the details of it, which is very different than residential transactions.
Definitely. And I remember I learned really fast when I first got into the market, 2016. There was a launch in Woodbridge, Icona.
Oh, I remember Icona.
Remember Icona? And
wow.
I was barbering at the time. So as I'm cutting hair, I'm like, guys, there's this new pre-con. I just started. So I'm trying to get leads from my barber clients. And then I had 7 worksheets.
That's awesome.
I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. I just started. This is going to be such a good impact into my career, whatever. I submitted them online to, I think it was Baker, and never received a phone call. So I learned really quick.
So sweet. That
right? I'm running numbers. I'm like, oh my God,
I'm going to submit them up late.
Yeah. And then I learned really fast that you really need to know people, and it's a totally different animal out there, and you just got to be well connected.
It's really like a who knows who.
It is.
In a lot of ways for pre-construction.
It is. You want to skip the line, you just got to know people.
Yeah.
So,
not too different from everything else in the city,
right?
But yeah.
Or just in life in general. So you are, what brokerage are you with?
I'm with Union Capital Realty.
Okay, amazing. And you are the number one in the company.
I am, 3rd year in a row now.
That's huge. And what's inspiring to me is that you're a solo agent. So you'll see a lot of these numbers from big teams.
Yes.
Because it's the collective.
Of course, everything goes under one person.
Yeah. I mean, huge accomplishment still, but to do it as a solo agent, I'm a solo agent as well. It's just a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
So what I want to dig into now is how have you remained so consistent to stay top 3? Sorry, in 3 years in a row to stay number 1.
I think what I've done, I don't want to say what I've done, but I'm very, I treat this business as a business, right? So I don't wake up every day and just what am I going to do today? I every year I start with a proper business plan, and I model out what I need to do to achieve whatever my financial goal is. And I work backwards from there, right? So if you want this income, how many transactions do you need to do in the month to get to that? Which means how many calls do you need to do in order to get that many transactions? Okay. So I think you have to really work backwards and treat it as a proper business and systematic module in order to have consistent results, because getting lucky in the beginning and stuff like that only lasts for so long. So if you're not consistently adding value and keeping consistent with whoever your leads are, it'll just dwindle and dwindle versus grow and grow. Yeah.
And that's huge. I've had coaches when I first started tell me to do these things. I mean, actually putting into place.
It's really hard to implement. And then I only started doing it recently, which is where I think things change. Like in the beginning, I remember my first year, I made X amount of money, which was way more than I ever made doing the pre-con for builders. And I was like, what? I'm just going to go to the beach all summer, because I didn't have that mentality.
Yeah.
And only when I like shifted it completely. And a lot of it honestly happened when I became a mom, which I know sounds silly, but when I became a mom, it was like, I only have this many hours in a day to like get my shit done.
Yeah.
So I would just do it. I became even more focused.
Yes.
I guess is the best way to put it. I was just very focused because I couldn't like, I'm going to go to the mall today with my friends. Like it just wasn't a thing.
For sure.
Right.
And I feel like there's a lot of people who are trying to get into the business. There's a misconception because I hear a lot of people talk like, oh, I want to get my real estate license because I did some math. And if I sell 2 homes a year, 3 homes a year, like I'll be good.
Yeah.
Right. No.
No.
It's just not the mentality to have in this business. And there are some people who, very part-time and, to each their own.
Yeah.
But it's something where you just have to keep that ball constantly moving.
And I think that you like hit it on the head with the misconception because, a lot of the people in this industry, it's like they portray an image on social media. And I'm not knocking that. Like you have to do it. I get it, but people think you just post a picture on Instagram, lease like a white Mercedes and print a business card and you're like a successful real estate agent, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not knocking that. I have a white luxury car too. I just mean like you have to act. There's so much more in the back end to actually get success from it.
Yes.
And getting your license doesn't equate to, or posting a picture doesn't make a successful business plan. It just doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
No.
At all. And like Instagram, like anything, you just got to be consistent. In front of people's face.
Yes.
And showing the results and, just to be in people's subconscious that you're the person for them when they're ready.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And patience.
Huge.
So, you said you make a lot of calls. Like you count the amount of calls you would need to make.
Yeah.
Are you doing like cold calling or?
I did.
Okay.
I used to do cold calls. So now, I use, for me, like for accountability for myself, I have like a point system.
Nice.
So I have X amount of points that I need to hit every day in order to like win the day and be a successful day.
Cool.
And so a call will equal, for example, 1 point. A listing appointment equals X amount of points. And I like work towards, I hit all those points in the day or at least tally enough for the week. So that's how I keep myself accountable as an example. But my calls, not so much cold calls anymore.
Yes,
I do have like someone who I hired who will help me with that. Mm-hmm. It's more calls to hotter leads, my pre-construction leads, or just my sphere of influence and just systematically connecting with them.
Yeah. Like everything you're talking about is what I was trained to do in my first year, but just implementing it is really
tough.
hard. So good kudos for you. Like I'm currently in the process. I just hired an assistant.
Amazing.
And she's organizing all of my clients into one Excel sheet because I don't even know how to use Excel.
I'm so bad with Excel. Yeah. I don't know how to do
it. No idea where to start. I don't even know what a cell is, but good for her because she's a wizard. And like everything I've been doing is more just referrals. Yeah. But that organization is huge.
But referrals is very important. And I think like once you start organizing, you'll find a better way to just consistently communicate with them, because organizing them is one thing. Next is, how do I consistently add value to this database or this lead source, right? Because you can have them there, which is great, but are you calling X amount every week? Like how many people are you calling just to catch up and say hi, right? It's all the top of mind stuff that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And just genuinely being interested in how their life is and what's going on. Yeah.
Because it's always beyond the transaction.
Yes.
That's
just one little aspect.
Yeah.
Of it. Mm-hmm.
But some people forget. I think it's super important because it is what it is. People have different ways of thinking, but they may feel like, oh wow, they just helped us and just
disappeared.
Left. Yeah, right.
Peace.
Yeah. So do you like do you have like a kind of like a reminder system where you have like check-ins with people, or?
I'm working on a reminder system. So the person I hired is going to help me with more touch points, because I do think you need to have like a certain amount of touch points through the year. But again, with the referral source, a lot of them, if they're on my social media, like just messaging or like sometimes I genuinely think of people, right? Like if I pass by their area, like, hey, I was just thinking of you. How are you? Like, can I pop by maybe next week and see how you've decorated or whatever it may be? Or I'll go back to check, let's say they bought last year and I know the market's doing amazing. I'll go back to check what the stats are and I'll be like, hey, this is how much the homes in your area are selling for. I'm so happy that you bought when you did. Look at all the equity you've gained. Everyone wants to hear that, right? How much equity they've gained. And I'm happy for them, like genuinely seeing that my clients are growing their wealth, as well as just a touch point and they feel good about it, right?
Yeah, that's so huge.
Yeah.
That's something I've thought about. So everything you're talking about is things I've thought about doing. Just have not done.
Take notes.
This is recording, right? We're good? Okay. I'm stealing everything. I'm kidding. So how do you find a balance then? Because you have your mom, 2 kids. You're essentially hitting, all these achievements on your own. Like you have help, but you're still a solo agent. Like what are some tools or some tips to like finding that work-life balance?
It's tough.
And not burning out.
Yeah, it's really tough. I find like I have periods where I do find that I'm burning out and then I just have to like let go and I have, if I have people that I can lean on, maybe agents who they're not in my team, but they'll be associates like in the office and I'll just say, listen, can you please do X, Y, Z for me? And I'll share a portion of like my commission with them if they're taking out that buyer or whoever it may be. Just like, I just can't simply do it all.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to that, because a burnt out person is not useful to anybody.
No.
I wouldn't be useful as a wife, as a mom, as a realtor, if I was just completely burned out.
Yeah.
So I'll just leave the office. Sometimes I'll be like, you know what? Today's my day. I'm going to go whatever. Get my nails done, just something.
Take a me
right?
day.
Like just take a me day, right?
Yeah.
And I think that I used to feel so guilty about it because I was like, no, I have to be working 9 to 5. But then I think as realtors, we forget not only are we in the office like 9 to 5, you probably work in the evening and you're working weekends. So you're working so much more than a normal, 40-hour work week. At least I am. So
me too.
You have to just kind of take that break, go on that vacation. No one's going to die if you go away for 4 days and just have someone there who can obviously help you if the best property comes up and you knew you had an active buyer. But just do what you got to do.
Yeah.
You got to take a selfish.
You do. You have to be selfish a little bit. And it's so hard to do that.
It's so hard.
Because you're on everyone else's time.
Yes.
And there's...
You never know when that house or that property is going to come up. You can't control it. Right.
And you just feel like there's just so much competition out there. Like it's always in the back of your head. Like, if I leave for a little bit, is my client going to go somewhere else? Yeah. Obviously if they're under contract, but
I think like it really depends where you are. If I knew I had like a buyer, or I wouldn't leave if I had a listing right now, but if I had a buyer, for example, that I knew was super active, I probably wouldn't head out. Yeah. But if someone's just kind of more casually looking, then I think that's okay. But if someone's going out every single day, like they need to buy, then you probably want to stick around a little bit.
Time and place.
Yeah, time and place.
Agreed. But when it's that time to get out, you get out.
Yeah, then you get out.
You just get out. So you have an amazing social presence.
Thanks.
You make a lot of valuable videos.
Thank you.
For, providing tips to people and stuff like that. So I know prior to this, we spoke about some information. For example, let's talk about some new agents. Okay? Because a lot of my demographic and viewers that listen and watch are people who are getting their license or just starting. A lot of people who are just in ruts. I've had people come up to me saying they quit and they heard the podcast and now they're back in it. Yeah. Because it inspired them. Mm-hmm. So for all the new agents out there, anything you'd want to share to kind of maybe get them motivated, get them to stay in it?
Maybe it's like an unconventional approach where it's not necessarily motivating, but like I'm more like of an honest, blunt kind of person.
Best way to be.
Yeah. So I think there's 3 main reasons why new agents fail, or agents in general fail. And by fail, I don't mean in like a super negative way. I mean, they can't make real estate their full-time career to achieve their financial goals. Yes. So that's what I mean as failure. So the number 1 is business plan and lack thereof. Mm-hmm. So they don't have a business plan, like I was saying, and treat it such as a business, working backwards. For example, a new agent will say, okay, well, I'm going to send a flyer out to an area. Well, you know what? Farming is a lot more than one flyer to the area. A small basic farm is going to cost you $50,000, right? Are you in a position to invest $50,000 right now in order to do that? So then you probably shouldn't be sending out one flyer. You're going to waste $3,000,
Yeah.
for example. So
Yeah.
like, business plan in that regard, what you're doing every day. Number 2, which is, I think is the big one, guys, that is lead generation. So you have to have various forms of lead generation coming. Yes, your sphere of influence is huge, and that's going to be your biggest one when you're starting out, but you also need other sources continuously. Online leads, pre-construction leads, open houses. I know we don't have that now because of COVID, but volunteering to do open houses. So you need multiple sources of lead generation coming into your pool. And on top of that, how are you strategically communicating points of value to those leads continuously? So just being very like on the ball with that. And the third thing that I think for new agents, which is really important, that helped me, is mentorship.
Yeah. Huge.
So mentorship is huge when you're first getting this industry, because you honestly don't know what you're doing. You just don't. The courses are not structured in a way for like the day-to-day life of how to succeed as an agent. And with mentorship, I think the biggest thing is accountability.
Yeah.
You need someone or something to hold you accountable. So let's say for me, it's that point system. But for new agents, I think it's important to have like a head team member or someone who's giving them that accountability in order to help push them to succeed. And without that, it's very easy to just wait till something falls on your lap, right?
Yeah.
You're just kind of like, who's going to call me today? And guys, we wake up unemployed every day.
Oh, I love that.
Every day I
That's
wake up
awesome.
unemployed,
Yeah, that's
right?
awesome.
So
Yeah.
yes, great. I got an award last year, but guess what? I'm waking up January 1st with $0 and no job.
Yeah.
Right? So I think people forget that. And you need to have it like in you. I don't know how else to phrase it, but I'm a competitive person just by nature. I know that about me. I've known that about me for a long time. So I'm just like obsessed with wanting to get it or wanting to win. So I think you have to be honest with what your strengths are. Maybe, talking to people on the fly for social media is not your strength. Then map it out.
Yeah.
Have a proper thing in place. Hire like someone who can help edit that for you, and then create your content, right? Make it valuable, and just work off of what your strengths are. Not everyone's is going to be the same.
Yeah.
Right.
That's super important because people there's so much information out there. So you're going to have this realtor kills it on Instagram. This one's on TikTok. This one's on Facebook, whatever. It's like this person has signs everywhere in my area because they're farming. So it's so easy to get caught up in like, I got to try everything.
Yes.
Versus focusing on what you're strong in. And you're not going to realize that right away either.
Yes. And I think another thing for new agents like to realize too, just because someone has lots of followers on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok does not necessarily translate that they're actually very successful in selling real estate or producing. There's an image created, but when you look at the stats, it could be vastly different. So just keep that in mind, guys. Just do you and just be consistent.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's focus on yourself and don't get discouraged by other people's highlight reels, right?
Yeah, of course.
Ton
Exactly.
of
That's
failures
all
in
what
there.
it is. It's like 7,000 photos of me until I pick one to post.
Yeah. Same. Guilty.
Guilty. This one.
Did you have any mentors when you started?
I did.
Okay.
I did. And that's the people that I joined the brokerage with. So
beautiful.
I joined a team, and to me that was so huge. And I think a lot of new agents struggle with knowing, okay, I'm going to join a team. Oh, but they're going to take half of my commission. But guys, half of something is better than zero.
Yeah.
Right? So when you're starting, you have to just let go of that and know I'm going to learn so much during this, and it's just going to help propel me later.
Yeah, definitely. And you just you can't be greedy at
Can't
all.
be greedy.
No.
Definitely not in the beginning.
Just just do free work for free.
Huge.
Yeah, so big. I mean, open houses were helpful, but not anymore.
No, not so much now.
That's amazing. So thank you for that, all that info. I want to pick your brain now with the market and the buying market.
Oh gosh.
Because being a buying agent is rough.
It's rough out there.
What would be some skills or some tips to excel or succeed in this current market we have, representing a buyer?
As an agent?
Yeah, both sides.
Both sides?
Maybe some tips for a buyer out there. Probably a lot of mental tips because it's so psychologically draining, but on both sides.
So Matt, honestly, like we were kind of hinting to that. It's rough out there, guys.
Yeah.
It's not a lie. We know what it is. The biggest tip I would give to even the agent and the buyer is just mentally managing expectations. So I think the biggest struggle has been that this year, for example, some pockets have seen like a 46% growth.
Nuts.
Right? Which is crazy. And it's really hard. And I totally get it for a buyer to be like, well, I could have bought that semi for 1.4, but now it's 1.8, like X amount of times later. Right? So I think the biggest thing that I always tell my buyers is, I'm so happy you have this checklist. Amazing. We're going to try to hit it. But if you have to be okay with maybe your first purchase or whatever it is not going to be your A product that checks all the boxes, but let's just get you in the market because it's so important to get in. Maybe it's not going to be your top area. Maybe it's not going to be your second favorite area, but you're not stuck there forever, right? Like you're not forced to be there for the rest of your life. So let's just get your foot in the door, help you build that equity, because unless you're in the game, you can't keep playing. You just need to get in.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's agents managing buyers' expectations.
So big.
And buyers, it's tough for them too because it's reiterated in their mind when they see like $999 listed price and that's what they think it's worth because that's what maybe it was worth a year ago, and then they go and they see it sold for 1.4. So it's really tough mentally, and it's like this like block that people have with how much it's transitioned in a short period. But the quicker you come to that realization and just like, let me just get into something and I'm going to move and propel myself from there. That would be the biggest thing.
Yeah, just get your foot in.
Just get your foot in the door.
And I mean, overpay today, make a little more tomorrow.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you think the nature of bidding wars will ever change?
You know what? I've seen some interesting articles and people like proposing to stop blind bidding, which is like the bidding war. I don't know if it'll change. It's obviously not that beneficial to the seller, so I don't know how like the government would do that. But some places have implemented that, right? So I don't know if it's a bad thing, but then it's funny because if it's not a bidding war or blind bidding, you're still gonna get someone like the price is right. It's like $1 more. Like how much does it go, right? Or are they gonna just do one shot?
Or it's like Australia does auctions.
Yes, the auction,
right? Which is cool.
Yeah,
it's kind of like everyone come to the house and and just open field,
open bid,
and just bid away.
I don't know if that'll necessarily change what it sells for, though.
I agree.
I don't think
still
it will. I don't think. Yeah, it's the same thing.
Everyone's more knowledgeable.
Yes,
but
there's still going to be that guy who's like, okay, here's 50 grand more.
Yeah,
I want it.
What's the most offers you've dealt with,
I think
or been a part of?
Been a part of?
Yeah.
It was something stupid. I don't know. It was like 38.
Yeah.
Or something. I think it was like 38.
I don't even know what to do at that point.
There's just.
It's like
I, as the listing agent, would hate it.
Yeah.
I've never had 38, and I wouldn't want 38.
I've had 35.
That's really bad.
I mean, I had so many people calling me upset, like, you didn't call me. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I didn't even know.
I'm trying to deal with like the top 5 right now.
Yeah.
And I don't like, my emails are just getting flooded, like offer,
revised offer,
calls,
bro.
text. What's going on? What's a random number? 647-416. What's happening? Who are you? Who's this guy? It is organization is so key.
Yes.
When dealing with these things. So now let's transition to the selling side. What would be some advice or tips that maybe you might educate your sellers on how to be in this kind of market?
So I think a lot of people think, oh, sellers are so lucky right now. It's a cash cow, which is true. It's great for sellers, but don't forget, these sellers are probably buyers. Like they're going to be in the same boat, right? So unless somebody is selling and like moving out of the country or totally, downsizing or renting, they're probably in the same boat as the buyers. The biggest thing for sellers in this market, we all know that things are going to sell. Like 99% your house is going to sell within a month just because of the lack of inventory. But the key, I think, that I talk to sellers about is let's not leave any money on the table.
Yeah.
So how do we get to present your house in the best light possible with the resources and time that we have?
Yeah.
Right. So no house is perfect. And my biggest thing is I always try to highlight the positives of the house and just kind of like diffuse any of the negatives.
Yep.
And hopefully the sellers are willing to work with you on that, because our job is to get the most possible dollar for them. And I think that sellers just need to keep note that, yeah, maybe you have to take a bit of time to paint something, but believe me, you're going to get that return back when it comes time to sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's like old school real estate, if you're coming into the market now, you may just think, oh, let me just take a couple photos and throw it up. It'll sell. But I'm sure you're the same as me. Like, still stage, still fix anything, you know, get some contractors in there.
Because you'll get that much more.
Exactly.
It'll just present that much better. Yes, it's going to sell. We know that. But how do we get the most money out of your property?
Yeah. So you're educating everyone, just like, let's go through all the motions.
Yes.
As we would in any market.
Yeah.
And they're usually receptive to that. Like,
yeah.
they're good
I
for
find that most people are receptive to that, especially when it depends on who they are and their circumstance. If they're super elderly and they don't want to do X, Y, Z, then, you know, that's fine. And we'll help as much as we can. But most sellers I find are pretty receptive whenever you tell them you think that we can capitalize on these minimal investments.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah,
fully. And it always works out.
Always.
Yeah. I will not stage a house.
Yeah.
Even if it's just accessorizing.
Soft staging is huge.
Yeah.
Like a pillow will go a long way.
It will, especially blue ones.
Yeah.
Love blue pillows. Makes that room pop, you know?
Pop.
So as we transition to the end, I know you're probably thinking, already?
Wow. Okay.
Very fast. I always like to do a segment in the end where I just want to pick my guest's brain on some market predictions, because a lot of people are like, what the hell's going on right now? It's just crazy. Things are flying. Like, I don't, you probably noticed December to January was a
nuts
big pop. So what are your predictions for 2022 going into 2023? Where do you kind of see things headed?
So I know a lot of people think with the interest rates going up that things are going to crash, let's just say, right? They're like, oh, well, all these sellers paid so much. When the interest rates go up, they're all going to have to foreclose or whatever that is. But I think, guys, like, what you have to remember, when these people are buying these properties, they're qualifying for the posted rate, not the discounted 1.65.
Yeah.
They're qualifying under the stress test.
Yes.
So they're already okay if the rates go up to X amount. So it's not like, oh, the rates are up, these guys are foreclosing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not happening.
So true. People forget about that, eh?
People forget. They think,
it's not really marketed anymore.
No, they don't talk about
the
it.
stress test anymore.
Canada's like mortgage and underwriting policies are really strong, which is why I think our market is, you know, not going to be penetrated that way, is that they're already qualified under those circumstances. And the fact of the matter is, honestly, we do not have enough supply. It's just fact. We don't have it. So unless the government loosens up on like the Greenbelt Act and we can start building there, everything is being pushed south. And that is just going to cause, again, a lack of supply. On top of that, you know, they want to instill these things on these condo builders saying, okay, guys, well, give us X amount of floors in your new building for low income earners to be able to live, or rental units within the building. But guess what? The builders just translate that loss of cost into the rest of the tower, and then they sell it for X amount more per square foot. But eventually, yes, the buyers will not be able to necessarily afford that. But I talked to these builders. You know what they said? They just said, we'll just stop building. We'll just stop building. Yeah. And guess what? What is that going to do to supply? Shrink it down even more. So I think some of the legislation that they're imposing by the government is just like out of our control. Is actually not helpful. It'll make it even more challenging to buy. And Canada has such an aggressive immigration policy.
Right.
There's so many people coming into the province and mainly the GTA that, again, it all comes down to the lack of supply. And that's what pushes this pricing up. And Toronto is like the 13th, it was like in the article, the 13th wealthiest city in the world. Like, there's a lot of wealth here.
There's a ton of wealth here.
20% of the market is made up of investors. And these are like confident buyers. Yeah. Right? So I think who's affected more is maybe like the lower income earning bracket. And they're unfortunately just not going to be able to achieve home ownership unless they've already been in that ladder.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's that same percentage of people that are also watching the news and like seeing like interest rate and like maybe not asking the right questions to people and not having the proper education, where they're like, oh my God, like I'm just not going to buy right now. Things are going to crash. You know what I mean? Like, it's always like the same kind of people getting people's ears. But then you have the investors who are like, give me 2 of those. I need this. 2 of those. I need this.
We all have that one uncle that's waiting for the market to crash from 20 years ago to buy.
Yeah.
Right?
20 years ago, exactly.
But even it's that same mentality. Let's say the market takes a dip, right? A little dip. Let's say it does. Those same people will still be the ones that say, well, it's going to go down even more. Like you're just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you'll always get that. But I think with the fact of how Toronto is like a hub, the lack of supply, even with the adjustment of interest rates, I still think maybe we won't see 46% increase in a year, sure, but I do think it's just steady, going to go up.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I cannot agree more. And what do you think about condos
I think condos
this year?
Well, my prediction, and I'm currently spot on, was that the condo market was going to go nuts in the first quarter.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it did. It went nuts. So I find typically like in the summer, it simmers more. Like it won't be like 25 offers on one listing. But condos realistically now are what most people can afford, right? So the ones that were buying townhouses, maybe now they can't get into that market. They're going to buy a 2-bedroom condo. And then again, down that ladder of what purchasing is going to be. So I think there's only 33,000 units being built and 120,000 immigrants coming in. So again, it's a very simple economics, lack of supply issue.
That's for 2022?
I think that was for 2022, I believe.
Okay, cool. I think I heard something similar. And
don't quote me on which year, but it was in and around there.
That's all like the pre-cons that are
pre-cons that are coming in. Yeah.
Nice. And it just, when you look at it that way and you see we have 1.2 million immigrants coming over the next 3 years, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, so first injection this year. I'll agree with Bob. Told me that. Thanks, Bob.
What was that? What did you say? Yeah, that's right.
Thanks, Bob. But yeah, it's just it's you just got to get in, ride the wave, and to any buyers out there, just overpay. Just do it. Pay. Just if you love it, get it.
But overpay is not
in a good way.
I use overpay in this sense because it's not really overpaying.
Today you are.
Sure. Today, everyone thinks they overpaid the day they bought their house. Ask them 3 years later, did they overpay? No, it was the best thing they ever did.
Exactly.
Right? So every buyer thinks they overpaid for their property. It's just fact, right? They always do, right? Every seller thinks they sold for too less. Every buyer thinks they bought it for too expensive. This is just psychology of every client. But I'll take myself, for example. When I bought my house, I overpaid by 20 grand as a bully offer to get in at the time. And I remember my husband was like, oh, we overpaid by 20 grand. I'm like, okay, just chill out. We got the house, right? 5 years later, if we didn't overpay by 20 grand, I would have been priced out of the detached market in Toronto.
Fully.
And it was laughable after 5 years, right? So I think you just have to think of it really long term. And people think, oh, I can't give $50,000 more. Well, it's not 50,000. It's X percentage on your deposit and $200 more a month.
Yeah,
so exactly. Once I break it down for clients what the actual math is of that $50,000 increase, they're like, oh, so it's not that much more. I'm like, no, it's not 50,000. It's
spread out.
It's spread out, right?
Yeah, I do the exact same thing when people are like, oh my God, but it's 10. I need to come up 10 more thousand. It's still 10 grand. I'm like, to the seller it is, not to you.
Yeah,
it's $40 a month.
It's $40 a month.
Yeah.
So you have to think of it that way too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this has been a lot of good knowledge you've shared.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome.
We clearly
Thank you
see
for
why
asking.
You've achieved so much. And would you have any last words to any realtors out there before we get off?
Just have a fire in you, I think. And that's the biggest thing. And just be very consistent. Consistency, I think, is just key to success in anything you're doing, right? Well, you're working out, you're doing whatever you're doing, just being consistent and having motivation is very lasts for so long. Yeah. Right. That goes away. And then it's just your habits.
Yes.
It's how you can keep with consistent habits of being making successful steps every day to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
I remember it was my second year. I wrote, I wanted to make X amount of money. I wrote it on a whiteboard and I literally stuck that thing beside my bed and I would wake up staring at it. And so I was like, what am I doing today to help me get to that?
Yeah.
Right. And you just have to push yourself from there.
Those constant reminders instead of saying tomorrow.
Yes.
I have sticky notes all over my condo.
Love it.
Numbers everywhere.
That's what you have to do.
I walk into this room oh, there it is again.
There it is.
Oh, there it is again. Just programmed in the subconscious, just there at all times. But thank you so much for coming. You've been amazing.
Thank you.
For all your new fans out there, where can they find you?
They can find me at Karina Eskandary, pretty much on Instagram, same on my Facebook page, my website. They can just message me with any questions that they have. I'm happy to answer those.
Fantastic. And also, guys, look out for her vlog. She's currently doing some nice behind the scenes right now. So you get to see a little bit more of how we set it up here and a little bit of pre-espresso chats. So, but thank you everyone for tuning in as always. Remember to like, subscribe, share, and we will see you guys on the next one. Thank you so much.